This video is for educational purposes only and is in no way a substitute for advice from a qualified medical professional. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Tira Ashby. I am the osteopathic practitioner and chiropractor here in Kimberley, and I work with our fabulous group of midwives to assist in the pre, peri, and postnatal care of moms and babes. Before I begin, I wanted to thank Frida for conceiving and manifesting this event. I think your participation is a testimonial to how much an event like this is needed in our community. Isn't it amazing the contacts and resources we have available here, and the list continues to grow? I wanted to talk to you about the importance of birth. For me, birth is the singular most important event of our life, and events around our birth directly predict our health, physical, emotional, social, and spiritual, for the rest of our lives. The recent documentary Microbirth predicts global collapse of our medical system by 2030 if we continue our current birthing practices. Today I wanted to look at the birthing spiral that occurs during a normal birth. By normal birth, I mean natural onset labor at term, resulting in a vaginal birth without the assistance of instruments or drugs, and preferably at home. Please raise your hand if you have given birth. Now keep your hand up if it was a natural onset labor. At term. Vaginal birth. Without drugs or instruments such as forceps or vacuum. And at home. Please take a look around. This is why we need to talk about normal birthing. The birthing spiral is an exquisite dance between mother and child. Completion of the spiral is critical for the physical, emotional, social, and spiritual development of the child in his new world outside of the womb. These forces continue for the rest of our life. The spiral also contributes to the mother's feelings of fulfillment around the birthing process. By 36 or 37 weeks, the baby is laying head down, but high in the mother's abdomen with his back along her right side. Moms often complain about being unable to take a deep breath at this point. Over the next 2 weeks, the baby will begin to rotate in a clockwise direction towards the mother's left side. At 39 weeks, the baby will be laying head down with his back along the left side of the mother's abdomen. And at 40 weeks, he will drop down into the pelvis and the mother can breathe again. In this position, the posterior part of the baby's head will contact the cervix and provide a strong stimulation for the cervix to thin, or efface, soften, begin to dilate, and eventually initiate contractions. The fibers of the uterus are oriented in a spiral pattern. Each contraction will begin at the superior pole on the right-hand side and continue spiraling down towards the cervix in a right rotation. This spiraling contraction will corkscrew the baby clockwise through the birthing canal in a series of stages. This clockwise rotation is called the spiral of health. Mathematically, it is known as Fibonacci's golden ratio, or simply Fibonacci's spiral, and is found everywhere in nature. From the development of plants to growth patterns in animals, it even predicts weather patterns, movement to continental plates, and the birth of a solar system. Fibonacci's spiral even describes the creation of the human form and our entrance into this world. During each stage of labor, the baby will turn towards the right, descend a little, and pause. This slow spiraling descent is critical for so many processes in the body. The whole process of being born is about getting the snot squished out of us, literally. This spiraling compression effectively wrings the mucus out of our organs, just like we wring out a face cloth to remove more water than just squeezing it. This is very important for the functioning of the lungs to switch from breathing fluid to breathing air. It is also important to flush the meconium out of the digestive tract. It globally mobilizes the spinal column better than any chiropractic adjustment. It exerts uniform compression on the brain, which allows total head expansion once the baby exits the birth canal and establishes a deep, strong, patent pumping action of the cranial rhythm. Our brain makes the cerebral spinal fluid that it's bathed in and pumps it out at a certain rate and rhythm. This coiling and uncoiling pumping action of the brain is called our cranial rhythm. The cranial rhythm and the pumping of the fluids starts in the embryo around the time of implantation into the mother's uterus, a full 10 days before the cells even begin to organize into a heart and vascular system. In osteopathy, we consider the pumping action of the brain to be more important for your health and vitality than the pumping action of the heart. That is why we call it our primary respiration. The cranial rhythm and fluctuation of the fluids is the driving force behind the growth and development of the embryo. The cranial rhythm is already in place inside of the baby, but it is the corkscrewing of the baby's head around the prominence on the anterior surface of the mother's tailbone that really kicks the rhythm into overdrive and provides the vital forces for growth and development outside of the womb. Now the baby is born. He was fully squished from top to bottom. He takes in his first deep breath to fully inflate his lungs and expand his head. His head is free to move in relation to his spine, and he has had a full body adjustment. Now the anterior chain is free to start developing. The anterior chain is a series of muscles and fascia along the front surface of our body. The whole purpose of the anterior chain is to pull us into a fetal position. It is all about comfort, protection, and security. That is why you return to the fetal position when you're feeling threatened. The baby needs to learn that he is loved, protected, and provided for. This is important for his attachment and bonding with his parents, but also for social development later in life. The anterior chain is also important for the baby to develop methods of self-soothing, such as sucking his thumb. One of the most important coping strategies we will learn throughout life. Adults continue to self-soothe using our anterior chain. You don't often see your boss or coworker break down in the middle of a meeting and start sucking their thumb. But if you look over, you might see them holding their hand like this. Anytime we are feeling uncomfortable or threatened, we subconsciously start holding our hands like this. How many of you just caught yourself? By the way, this is another example of Fibonacci's spiral. Any birth other than the normal birth described above disrupts the birthing spiral. This includes posterior presentation, cesarean, breech vaginal births, too fast, stalled labors, forceps, or vacuum. Some signs and symptoms of disruption of the birth spiral include chronic malalignment of the baby's head, resulting in flattening of the back of the head, known as plagiocephaly or brachiocephaly. Posterior flaring of the body. Shoulders hunched up and no apparent neck. Creases across the forehead or across the posterior shoulders when the baby looks up. Snorting while breastfeeding. Problems with latch or sucking. Regurgitation and or projectile vomiting. Colic and fussiness, sinus congestion, asthma, allergies, and the list goes on. In adults, a disrupted birth spiral has been linked to autoimmune diseases, asthma, type 1 diabetes, celiac disease, obesity, cardiovascular disease, mental health disorders, and some cancers. This is my beautiful goddaughter. She was a posterior birth, and she demonstrates the typical pattern of a posterior baby. Head side bent and rotated towards the right. Shoulders up around her ears with no apparent neck. Posterior flaring of the body. A forehead crease when she looks up. Snorting while breastfeeding, and projectile vomiting. So what can be done? I recommend manually reintroducing the birth spiral as soon as possible following birth. Ideally, I would integrate the spiral with both the mom and the baby, but as you can see here, that requires about 6 practitioners. I have recreated the spiraling motion in children up to 5 years of age, including my goddaughter, but after which they're just too big for me to support them in the various positions. I would love to be able to introduce the spiral into many of my adult patients, but I think that would require a pool for suspension and multiple practitioners to control the movement. In conclusion, life is about movement. The most natural movements are not linear, they're spiral. Please remember to find the spirals in your life. Thank you.